You're listening to Let's Stay Together, a podcast about Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kayla.
And today we're discussing chapters 50 and 51. We're just doing our discussion of summary of chapters 50 and 51, then discussion, and then we'll do spoilery discussion. I'm sure we'll have spoilery things to say. I'm sure we'll have a lot to say. I'm excited to talk to you about these chapters. But then again, I'm usually excited to talk to you about them. So, Chapter 50 opens with the narration. It happened at least 10 days ago, at a convenience store, late at night. You were there. And we cut to a convenience store. A man carries a stack of bags of chips so high that they cover his face that he bumps into Uo from behind. He apologizes, and she says it's fine. Wait, she says she's fine, but she says he should really use a basket. Oh, of course, that's silly of me. Thank you for your kindness, the man says, and he bows. The stack of chips slides everywhere on the floor, and Uo jumps back with a wah! And then Uo loses it. Is this for real? Is it really someone who does the same things she does?
I just want to say I just noticed that one of the chips he's holding appears to be Mogetta branded chips.
Wait. I have to look. Do you follow along while I read to you?
Yes.
Really? That's charming. I didn't know that. I see one that says potato. Oh, it is Mogetta. It's just sideways. I physically turned my book upside down so that I could see it. It's wonderful. She also picks up her feet to avoid them spilling everywhere around her, which is great. But of course she cracks up because if you didn't catch that, it's exactly the same as Tohru dropping the folders when they were in middle school when they met. Uo apologizes and she helps him picks up the chips, still laughing, which seems to catch the man off guard. The narration continues. I don't know why, but you were laughing so happily. And it was so pleasant. I wanted to watch you forever. Part of that narration is kind of overlaid on a half-page panel of Uo smiling, so I think this narration belongs to the guy. Sometime later, 10 days later, ? Tohru and Hana come into a coffee shop where Uo works. No fair, she says. While I'm stuck working my ass off, you two go on a date. Oh, we're not alone, one of them says, and it turns out that Megumi has come as their bodyguard-san, as Tohru says. And they told me that if I came, I would get to see Arisa in a miniskirt, he adds. It looks good on you. And Uo was like, you really don't act like a middle schooler, maybe more like a lecherous old man.
Lascivious.
Yeah, a lascivious old man. You're right. I really love Megumi.
Yeah.
As a side note.
Good.
He is good. They all comment on how Uo is working 2 jobs, and Tohru says that she wanted to look for more work, but Uo was like, don't be stupid, you've already got a full-time job working in that huge house, taking care of those 3 huge men. Don't you dare take on another job. You die from exhaustion. There's no frickin' way. And Tohru was like, no, they're the ones taking care of me, of course, and Hana is like, absolutely not. They ask Uo about the man that she met at her job, because she mentioned in the last chapter? She mentioned recently that she met a man at her work. So they ask her again about the man that she met, and Uo says that she met him at the convenience store, not here at this job. And Megumi and Hana share a knowing look, and Megumi asks, are we going to stake out the convenience store? And Uo is like, don't. I've told you 1,000 times he doesn't look like Tohru. It's like his clumsiness reminded me of her. My, is he that scatterbrained? Hana asks, and in the background Tohru's like, clumsiness? Scatterbrained? She has her little panicked expression and thinks those things. Anyway, I haven't seen him since that night, Uo says, and she looks off, kind of in the distance as if distracted by that thought. But if he did show up, I wouldn't mind seeing him again. Someone's gonna crush, I think. The kids also agree to go out to dinner later, as Uo gets sassed by the manager to stop chatting, and asks, aren't you gonna introduce me to one of them? And Uo is like, you want to eat the curse of their bodyguard, with Megumi clearly visible in the background, looking suspicious. Later that day, Uo takes her lunch break. When she steps out of the cafe, she notices a man in the distance who looks suspiciously similar to the man from the convenience store, and she runs to catch up with him, in heels. It couldn't be the same guy, she thinks, could it? Hey, wait, she yells, and then she catches him from behind by his shirt. He looks over his shoulder at her, and she pants. It is him, she thinks, and she beams like a bright smile. We see the man's face fully, and he blushes a little, clearly taken aback. You're the girl from the convenience store, he says. Yep, that's me, all right. This is such a coincidence, I'm surprised. Are you all right? He asks. You're gasping. I'm okay, she says. Just a little out of breath. And she's sweating and hunched over, trying to play it cool. I saw you from behind and I didn't want to lose sight of you. So without thinking, I just took off in pursuit. I'm not making any sense, am I? She says, and then she tugs her collar. Could it be, he wonders, that she's been thinking of me as much as I've been thinking of her? And Uo's stomach suddenly growls, which must be the most embarrassing thing to happen in Japan, because, like, didn't this happen in another chapter to somebody else? I forget who. No, I can't remember when it was.
It's like, obviously none of these children eat enough.
No, clearly. She's busy working hard, gotta make the dollars. Working, like, I was about to say working 9 to 5, and it's probably like 9 to 5 and then 5 to 9 in her case.
What a way to make a living.
Yeah. I don't know any more of the words, so I can't make another joke. You would think that she would deserve a fat promotion for her service and devotion, right? Those are lines from that song.
In our Dolly Parton podcast, we'll be
Yes. The man asks if she's eaten, and of course she hasn't, and he says that he hasn't either. He smiles and offers to treat her to lunch. Really? She asks in shock, sparkles flying everywhere in the panel, and her eyes are like just spots of light in her face, which is magical. Really, he says. I haven't properly apologized for what happened at the store. Yes! Wait for me, Tohru Soba, she cheers, and he's like, You sure you're okay with just Tohru Soba? And then she's like, what are you waiting for? The shop will get crowded. And he's like, okay. So she takes him to the place. She says, Tohru Soba's my favorite thing right now. And she's super tearful. You should think of what you want to eat, too. He watches her from behind, looking perhaps a little confused that someone could experience joy over something so simple, and then smiles. At the restaurant, the man introduces himself as Kureno, and she introduces herself as well, by her full name. Not a weirdo, like Kureno. She asks what he's doing in this area, and he says that he finally got some time off work, but he didn't have anything to do, so he was killing time walking around. He says that he's 26, and he asks if she's in high school. She confirms. And she explains that she works at the coffee shop and the convenience store, and he's impressed that she has 2 jobs. She wonders, while she eats soba, 9-year difference? Is this a little criminal? Would you believe me if I said that was my first time shopping in a convenience store? He asks. And Arisa eyes him suspiciously. It's true, he says. I guess it's a little pathetic. Truth be told, I really don't have a clue how to do things for myself. What are you? She stands up and shouts. Are you really the ruler of some kingdom or something? He laughs and he's like, nothing like that. It's a waste of my time. It was really unusual that I went to a convenience store that night. I usually don't do pointless things. As it's been established, I live and work, he says. Pointless, she thinks, looking a little bit shocked and hurt. So, on the other hand, he continues as if he's not being a jerk. When I get a time off like today, I don't know what to do with myself.
Like many people in the series, he doesn't know how to people.
He definitely doesn't know how to people. Are you happy living like that? She asks. He smiles a hollow-looking smile.
Having fun with all these descriptions of people's smiles in the series.
I'm so tired of saying rueful, so I had to come up with some more. Usually it's like genuinely happy or rueful. It's one or the other. This time I think it does look hollow. It looks like he's like smiling, but he's physically making the motion with his face of smiling, but there's no joy in it at all.
It's a smile that didn't meet his eyes.
Yes. That's like, well, a smile only meets your eyes if you're the Joker, so. He also, if you have to explain that you're happy, that's not coming across in your smile, it's not very genuine, is it? So he says, I'm happy, I have everything I want, I'm content. And he looks down. I'm sure I'm more content than anyone. So if you have to explain all of that, then you're not smiling genuinely, I think.
That smile looks rueful.
It is rueful. Hollow, rueful.
The second one.
Yes.
Well, the one when he's looking down after.
Yeah, the second one does look rueful. Uo grimaces. In that case, you should look happier when you smile, she says. And she stands up suddenly, to his surprise, and slams her hands on the table. I felt it, she thinks, that smile of his today when I first met him. It's an incredibly lonely smile. I'm sorry, I'm sure it was pointless, she says, even though you and I met during that wasted time. Karina looks taken aback. The servers and the other patrons of the restaurant wonder what's going on in the background. There's drama happening. Maybe I'm just a stupid girl, but I didn't feel like that was a waste of time to me. Meeting at the convenience store, eating soba like this. Ever since I met you, I've thought maybe it was more than a coincidence that you bumped into me. I couldn't get you out of my mind, Uo says, and she clenches her fist on the table and continues shouting, because I thought that our meeting meant something, because I was happy. Thanks, she says, I'm leaving, and then she pieces out, leaving Kureno sitting at the table looking a little upset himself. Outside, she thinks, in those like pointy star speech thought bubbles that we've seen before, that would mean that you're super pissed off or super... How would you describe the president talking before?
What?
Remember, like, the president of the student council, Makoto Takei? Mm-hmm. When he comes to the school, or no, not when he comes to school, when he's at school and Haru and Momiji there for the first time, and he comes and does his, like, rant about the campus defense force, he talks in those same speech bubbles.
I thought he was just loud.
So maybe her thoughts are just loud.
Yeah.
She's definitely angry. I think there's another speech bubble of Yuki's that uses the same style, or thought bubble or something from the episode with Kakeru. But anyway.
Prickly?
Prickly. That pisses me off, she thinks. I don't know why, but it really pisses me off. Well, sorry for wasting your time, and sorry for making you waste your money buying me lunch, and sorry, she thinks, wiping her eyes as she walks, for not being able to make you smile like you were having fun. Orisa, wait, Kurino calls, and it turns out that he's caught up with her. She's understandably annoyed, and is like, what makes you think you can call me by my first name, bastard? Don't follow me, don't talk to me, I'm mad as hell right now. He's like, please calm down, and please don't cry. And she's like, I'm not crying, of course. I'm sorry, he apologizes after she slows down. I spoke without thinking. I was happy, too, that you spoke to me. He thinks, running until you're covered with sweat just to talk to me? I couldn't get you out of my mind either. Really, I wanted to see you, too, ever since that night, he says. And she looks to him out of the side of her eyes, blushing a little. Oh, okay, she says and laughs. And he's like, are you blushing? And she's like, shut up, and kicks him. You are blushing, he says with a chuckle, and a genuine, bright smile this time. Uo thinks, looking up at him, now that's a real smile. He moves in close, and they look into each other's eyes, and he delicately touches her fingertips, and with his other hand he brushes some hair away from her cheek, and then caresses and kind of cups the back of her head, his thumb resting right in front of her ear. Suddenly, his expression darkens, he grimaces and pulls away quickly. She holds up the hand that he was touching as he pulls away, taken aback, and she watches him walk away, head down, hands at his side. It's like he just said I love you, she thinks. We hard cut to later, at the Motoyaki restaurant. Tohru cooks, which is a surprise to everyone, dear listener. Megumi asks if Orisa likes Kureno, and she's like, I don't know, he's mysterious and doesn't always make sense. And why did he leave without saying a word? What, did I have VM breath or something? Hana wonders if it's the age difference that was off-putting, and Tohru adds that her parents were 8 years apart, and very much in love. But I have to admit, she says, it feels a bit lonely knowing that one of my friends may have found her special someone. What are you saying, Uo says. You'll be someone's girlfriend before you know it, and then he'll definitely want to keep you all to himself, as if he'll let him. We're definitely crashing their first date, aren't we, Hanajima? She says, pointing to Hana, and Hana points back and is like, of course. The Motoyaki sizzles in the background. Are you lonely? Megumi asks Hana, like a good brother, and she smiles and says she's all right. Anyway, Uo says, she won't be able to see him again unless he comes to her. Could he be married with children? Hana asks, raising a gloved hand to her face in surprise. Ugh, if that's the case, then I'm calling it off right there, Uo says. But it would really be wonderful if you could see him again, the optimist, Tohru says. I wonder, Uo says, will I see you again? Elsewhere, in the dark bordered corner of the manga, we see Kureno walking. We see his internal monologue again. If only I could watch over you, if only I could always be near you and touch your lips. He walks down a wooden hallway. Familiar feet under a kimono appear in what looks like a darkened room. Welcome back, Kureno. And a page flip reveals that is, of course, Akito, coat kind of half draped off, looking disgruntled. I trust you didn't cause any mischief outside. Kureno looks resigned, but I'm sure I won't be able to see you again, he thinks. Akito approaches him and caresses his cheek, with the same hand that he held up to Uo's face earlier. No, Kureno says, everything's fine, Akito. And that's the end of chapter 50.
Dun, dun, dun.
So dark! Alright, it's okay. We're going to take a hard left turn into something exciting.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm just kidding. That was
No
really
less dark.
exciting. It's going to end on an upturned note, though, at least. It goes bright, dark, dark, bright. Chapter 51 opens with a familiar dark-headed baby in a tiny, adorable coat. In the narration, when I was little, I hated going outside because I would hear the voices of hearts that I didn't want to hear. I would hear so many, and it made me feel sick inside. We cut to a park. Baby Hana is there with her parents and baby Megumi. The panels are crowded by these, darkened speech bubbles that represent the thoughts of others, and Hana's mother calls to her, and her father says she isn't feeling good. Baby Hana stops and crouches to the ground, and her mom consoles her, and they decide to take her home. At home, her parents talk. Hana's always been like this. It's frustrating that there's nothing they can do to ease her pain. It's strange, her mother says. She's the only one in our family with a power like that. We can't take her to the hospital. It might only hurt her more, Hana's father says. Her grandmother is also worried about baby Hana's future. She'll have to suffer because of a special gift that other people don't have. It's a power that people won't understand. Baby Hana, who's in bed, is visited by baby Megumi. A strange power, Hana's inner monologue / narration / thoughts continue. There's like all in this chapter because it's kind of like a flashback like we've seen before. There's Hana's like narration / thoughts throughout. Mm-hmm. So this is, or her inner monologue, I guess. Why is it that the voices of my family's and other people's hearts come into my head uncontrollably? We see a scene of her approaching her family and her father is like, I know what you're thinking. Daddy sure looks tired. And Hana's narration continues. My parents tried to make me feel comfortable with it, but they don't understand. Nobody does. Not even me. A power I was born with. A strange power. Hana's grandma says that it would be nice if she could learn to control her power, but neither she nor her parents know how. They wonder if Megumi might have that power too. Maybe that's why he doesn't talk. And their dad is like, I think that might just be his personality. A kind family, Hana thinks. Kind voices. I didn't want to trouble them because of my power, so I tried hard to keep it a secret as much as I could. Witch, we hear. She's a witch. Say something, witch, a tiny asshole child says, smacking the hat off of baby Hana's head. Another kid tells him to cut it out, and Hana says nothing. School was agony, Hana narrates. The voices were especially loud at school. I was always looking down, trying to shut them out. Needless to say, I got teased a lot. We see scenes of just that, kids saying, don't touch me, I don't want your witchy germs, witch, for example. And then I did it, Hana narrates. Something terrible. It's lunchtime at school. An asshole little boy throws a lizard into baby Hana's bowl. Eat it, he says. My sister told me that witches eat live newts. Come on, do it. I would never eat this, Hana says. Come on, the boy says to the other kids. Hold her down, put it in her mouth. They push her to the floor, and they're like, ew, she put it in her mouth. So I guess they managed to, like, get the newt in her mouth. I don't know, whatever. But she's on the floor. Be quiet, Hana thinks. If I'm a witch, what are you? Is it okay for you to do something so terrible? Be quiet. She imagines the boy in darkness, and she glares at him and thinks, I hate you. I really hate you. I wish you would die. 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 And then we see the boy from behind, and he stumbles and falls to the floor. Hanajima's parents talk after school. It turns out the boy has finally regained consciousness. His mother also fainted of the strain of being with him in the hospital and was being treated as well. It's because I wanted him to die. Because I willed him to die with all my heart, Hana says. That's why he almost died. When will you take me to the police? When will they put me in prison? I tried to kill him, she says. Eyes looking lifeless, like we've seen before, like kind of like Kisa's mom or Uo in that one scene in her backstory. Her parents are, of course, unwilling to believe that this was her fault in any way. I really thought I'd killed him. If it happens again, I might kill him for real. I'm scared, Hana says, and her father hugs her to try to comfort her. No more, Hana thinks. I don't want to wish for anyone's death ever again. And then we see Hana now a little bit later in elementary school, I think, and she explains that from that day on she wore black. Rumors quickly spread about her and the boy, and she was ostracized even more. I felt that it was the punishment I deserved, Hana says. We see another scene out on the playground. Hana, who's alone, looks over at some kids playing. A boy falls and scrapes his knee and immediately blames Hana, of course. And then we see again at home, Hana listens to her parents talking. For some reason, they're like keeping the kid overnight in the hospital for the scrape because they're worried about it getting infected. And they say that, of course, they blamed Hana. So, I don't know. I guess that's why her parents are in the know. Megumi comes and tugs on Hana's sleeve. He's been reading books that their grandma say might have some information about Hana's power. And Hana is like, don't read those. You're going to freak mom and dad out. But Megumi asks why Hana is always so quiet. Why does she take the teasing? Do you think that you deserve punishment? He asks. The police can't judge me, Hana says, but I should receive some form of punishment for the sin of wishing so deeply for someone's death, she thinks. Baby Megumi raises his eyebrows at her and asks if she plans to live her whole life as if people wish to punish her, and Hana doesn't reply. Then I will pray, he says, and he clasps his hands and looks down. Because there's no way that Saki is meant to be alone in her whole life. In this world overflowing with people, I can't believe that there's not one person out there who wouldn't love Saki. So whoever you are, please come meet her. If you're in a far-off country, then get on a plane. Hurry, come to Saki as fast as you can, he says, closing his eyes. Please. And Hana hugs him close. It seemed like such an absurd prayer, she narrates. I thought that some prayers could never be answered, just as some stains that once there could never disappear. We see more scenes of Hana getting older and being bullied at school. Nothing changed when she went to middle school. In fact, the voices all got stronger. We see some girls grabbing Hana and holding her down. They roll up her sleeve, and they ask, doesn't she send out poison waves when she's mad? And they threaten her and burn her arm with a match. Hana tries not to think of the pain or anything, lest any of the girls get hurt. Suddenly a teacher bursts in and finds them, but of course all the girls blame Hana, and poor Hana says nothing. After school, her parents resolve to move to get Hana out of that environment to go to another school. Hana tells them to without her. She doesn't want to be any more trouble. "Oh, Saki, you poor girl," her dad says. "It's no trouble. Parents always worry about their children. It's what we do. It's love, Saki. We love you," they say, and both her mom and her dad hug her. "So please don't give up yet." So Hana changed schools. Her teacher sasses her for having black nail polish on her first day. Since the uniform isn't black, her grandma painted her nails black for her, which is really cute. "Are you telling me to lose the proof that I'm a sinner? What a strange adult," Hana says, and the teacher clearly doesn't know how to respond, and when a kid complains about it in a class, the teacher is like, "She says they're proof that she's a sinner. What do you want me to do about it?" Even in a new environment, Hana says she didn't try to not distance herself from others, and she remembers her parents' words, "Don't give up yet." The good news is that Hana is about to not have a choice in being close to people or not, because at lunchtime, our baby heroine gives her a double portion of lunch, and she smiles brightly. "I'm Tohru Honda," she says, in a bubbly speech bubble that I think ought to have the eyes dotted with hearts because we're in a middle school flashback. "It's so very nice to meet you. I think the school lunches here are most delicious. I would be so happy if you would like them too, Hanajima-san." "Honda-san," some kid pipes up. "There's a lineup back here. Talk to her later." A ditz, Hana wonders, and why so polite? But I'm surprised to think anyone would talk to me without being afraid. Hana walks away with her lunch, and another person calls, "Yo, hey new kid." And of course, it's Uo, our other heroine, I think, at least in this chapter. "I bet you're planning to eat by yourself. I hate that, so sit down." And there's another person who isn't afraid, Hana thinks. She's pretty, but arrogant. "Look at you, new kid. It's like you're just asking to get your ass kicked. Tohru, over here," Uo calls, and Tohru joins them and asks if Hana will be eating with them. Uo's like, "I just picked her up," and Tohru's like, "You picked up such a very good one," which is very charming. Maybe Hana wonders if using polite language is like Tohru's habit. Tohru pushes her to a chair and encourages her to sit down. Hanajima, Uo says, and then points at her. "If Kyoko-san was here, you'd be Hana-chan." And Tohru's like, "Oh right, you're Hana-chan, which is also amazing. Hana worries. If she thinks about them too much, their voices might reach her. "I have no intention of eating with you," Hana says and stands up quickly. "You'd be better off not associating with me. You would receive 100 hurts and not a single good thing," she says. And we see Chibi, Uo, and Tohru listening to her. And after what I imagine is a moment of silence, Tohru looks panicked. "Now that you mentioned it, I don't know if anything good comes from associating with me either." "In my case," Uo says, "it might be more like 200 hurts and no good things." And Hana is like, I wasn't joking. Are you listening?" And Toru's like, "Yes, you're right. From now on, I'll do my best to be the type of person who spreads goodness to all around her." And Hana is like, "It's not that I wanted you to set a new goal." "Give it a rest," Uo says. "Who cares about the details? Today you change schools, the weather is good, and there's school lunch. Now sit down and eat with us weirdos." "You really are weird," Hana says, and they smile and say, "We get that a lot." "From the moment I met you," Hana narrates, "you two really were strange. The voices I would sometimes hear were never just pretty voices. You secretly held voices that seemed to be crying softly." There are panels shown of Uo and Toru smiling, but then they're kind of textured over a bit darker, which is really interesting. "The people were different, but my curse still hadn't gone away," Hana narrates. And Uo and Toru say goodbye to her at the end of the day, and Hana wonders if they'll greet her tomorrow morning. Maybe because nobody did that before? That's what I put in my notes. With a worried face. In the morning, just that happens. Toru catches up with Hana and greets her. Hana doesn't say anything but blushes, and Toru freaks out in her Toru way that she always does. "What's this? Toru, did you confess your love or something?" Uo asks. "For the first time in my life I felt happy," Hana narrates. Then we see scenes of the trio at school and with Kyoko. "So many times since then I thought to myself that they'd be better off if they didn't associate with me. But before I knew it, we were a team, and I was happy. When I realized that I'd almost forgotten my place," Hana narrates, "it was in between 2 seasons." And we see a scene of them at school later. "I heard from this one friend of mine who goes to your old school," some girl says to Hana, who is playing with Toru's hair while Uo sits nearby at school, "that when you were in elementary school you tried to kill a boy. Is that true?" Hana starts to lose control, and we see more and more dark speech bubbles popping up. And the girl who was sassing Hana suddenly has a sharp pain in her head, and she immediately blames it on Hana, so Hana runs away. "I'm scared," Hana thinks, and she panics. Did I use my power again? I'm scared." Toru finds her. Hana is at the top of the staircase. "Stop!" Hana cries and holds out her hands. "You mustn't come near. I apologize for not telling you before, so you shouldn't be around me anymore. I really do have a power. I almost killed someone, so please just leave me alone." Toru looks up at her, looking concerned and sort of trepidatious. A sin that wouldn't disappear, Hana thinks. A stain that wouldn't wash away. I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. Why was I even alive? All I could do was cause people pain. but Tohru climbs up the stairs and reaches up and touches Hana's hands with hers. We're so close, Tohru says, clasping her hands fully. We're becoming such good friends. I don't want to be separated. There might still be a lot about you that I don't know, but please don't leave, Hana-chan. Hana-chan, I love you, Tohru says, tears welling up in her eyes. Tears well up in Hana's eyes as well. I love you, Hana-chan, Tohru says again. But Hana says, and she thinks, I might hurt her. You decide, Uo says. Uo's finally found them as well. Don't assume that things are a certain way, because that's what people tell you. Do you want to leave? That's all I want to know, Uo says, looking serious. Hana cries and remembers her parents' words. It's what we do, it's love. She remembers a previous scene of walking to school alone. That day as I went home, I looked up at the sky, at the setting sun. It seemed so lonely that I was trembling. It was so bizarre, and when I looked down, there wasn't just one shadow anymore. From that moment on, I never walked alone again. I do want to be with you, Hana says to Tohru, and tears stream down her face. I want to be with you, she says, and she rests her head on Tohru's. Uo stands behind Tohru. Hana remembers Megumi's prayer. I will pray. I can't believe that there's not one person out there who wouldn't love Saki. I will pray, so don't give up. A little while later, Hana seems to be able to, control her powers a bit. That's so wonderful, Tohru cheers. There's a scene with her and her family, and Tohru and Uo are there as well. Hana wonders if it was the composure born of a life fulfilled, and she promises that she would never use her powers lightly, except for some minor punishments, such as with the Yuki fangirls. And we learned that Hana's grandmother told her that the boy that she feels like she attacked is doing well. We see Megumi and Hana together in the present. Megumi asks if she'll ever stop wearing black, and she says that she's comfortable in it now. Megumi, too, it turns out, is most calm in black, he says.
So there's little, characters in the background all going, so much black or whatever. And there's also, a pigeon that's thinking that they're wearing a lot of black.
The pigeons are concerned. And he's also at this point, if either of us were pink or yellow, the town would be in an uproar. And Hana's they would, wouldn't they? I'm grateful, Hana says, to father, mother, Obaba, and you. And Tohru and Uo call them to catch up. So I guess this is after dinner. It's not... It just opens with Hana as a little kid, so...
Mm-hmm. I went back to check. They're not wearing the same clothes. But
oh, they're not?
I was like, it's probably supposed to be that, but...
That's interesting. Well, I don't know. I guess it could just be a random time.
I guess. It looks like Hana and Megumi might be wearing the same clothes, but Uo and Tohru are definitely wearing different clothes.
They're all wearing different clothes.
But yeah, I had the same thought. I was like, it must be right after that. But...
it's probably just another time. I think this is kind of outside of a timeline. It's not necessarily clear. Tohru and Uo call them to catch them up, and Hana thinks, there are times when my heart feels so full I think it's going to burst. Even with all the love my family showed me, that alone was never enough. Father and the others would always be there with a smile, and I just thought that I was selfish and unfeeling. Whenever I start to feel that way, I think of what Kyoko said, and then we see a memory of Kyoko. We're about to get another wisdom drop, everyone. Here it comes. Human beings can't help but want other people. Probably, no matter how miserable their situation or how much they're loved by their family, all anyone wants is to be accepted by others. I'm sure of it. And all that parents want is for their children to be happy. That's really all that matters. Someday when you girls get older, even if you start to take different paths, you'll never have to feel lonely or unloved, because these are the kind of bonds that never go away. And we close on a scene of Tohru, Uo, Hana, and Megumi walking together, long shadows cast by the setting sun. That's the end of chapter 51. So we ended on a high note. Anyway, I was excited. I haven't read these chapters for a long time, but I really enjoyed reading both of them again. I'm ready. I have so many things to talk to you about.
Right. So we met a new character.
We did.
His name's Kureno, and he doesn't know how to people.
No. He doesn't need a last name because he's obviously a Soma. Also.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he could be an employee or something, but he's obviously close enough to, be in personal contact with Akito. So
Akito touched his face.
Yeah. That is the thing Akito mostly does to Somas.
Yes. So he'd have to be a really high-ranking person on the inside who's not a Soma.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were that kind of person, they would just change your name to Soma. You'd have to sign a paper.
It's you're just a Soma now.
Yeah.
Welcome to the family.
They give you a new passport when you go into the inner gate.
Yeah. I was gonna talk more about Kureno, but there's actually not a lot right now.
All my comments are about his relationship, so...
Yeah, the two people we see him interacting with in this chapter are Uo and Akito, which are a pretty interesting pair.
It is very interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like it's a complete outsider of the Soma family and the head of the Soma family,
That's true.
and like none of the people involved like know any of this whole complicated interconnectedness going on between all these characters right now. Like Kureno doesn't know who Uo is in relation to
He
like
doesn't
Tohru.
even. I mean,
and
he
the
probably heard of
Somas
Tohru, but he doesn't. He hasn't even met Tohru yet, as far as we know.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah, and Uo doesn't know. She knows of the Somas, but doesn't know all their deal, and doesn't know that Kureno is involved with them at all.
Yeah, they're just like complete strangers, as far as she knows.
Yeah.
Slash, he knows, because he doesn't know her. He doesn't know Tohru. So
Yeah.
I think we should talk about Kureno and Akito first, because it's the easiest one to talk about because it's short.
Okay.
So, like, basically, Kureno came home, and Akito asked him for being away, and then he said everything's fine, and then Akito, like, caressed his face, and that was the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
I do think it implies that they're close. It's not clear exactly what their relationship is like. This is why I thought it'd be easy to talk about, because there's, like, very little to say.
Yeah. But he obviously is. He seems to be somewhat isolated, just by how he's talking about how like all he does is like live and work, and he doesn't know what to do on his rare days off, and has never been to a convenience store. And
Yeah. Never once.
doesn't know how to like be a normal person talking to a normal person.
Although he did ask her to lunch, so that was the most normal thing that he did, I guess, except that he's not in
Yeah.
high school, so...
Yeah. And the fact that when he comes back to Akito, he says, like, I'll probably never see her again, which implies that there's some kind of thing with that his relationship to Akito and the Somas that would keep him from spending much time outside of the main house.
Yeah, that's very true.
I liked the paralleling of the face touching in the
I know.
chapter with him and Uo and him and
Yeah,
Akito.
I also liked that. I noticed it right away, and I liked it. But also maybe I noticed it right away because I spent 20 minutes trying to describe the scene where he touches or where he touches Risa's face. I was like, yeah, it's a good touch.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot.
It's kind of neat how much attention that one gets, like whole like 2-page spread basically. And then like the one with Akito's just kind of like crowded into the bottom of the panel, like all in shadow and stuff.
I'm just looking at it again. He also like looks. I mean, Akito, their faces are like they're both also shade, like there's shade over them too. Like it's not, and we see like Kureno's face looks very strained. I think I would say. Can't remember how I described it before. Also rueful, but
Yeah.
I mean, like
Everyone's
beyond
rueful.
though, it looks like painful. Like he's like
Yeah.
his eyebrows are kind of like scrunched, or his eye, whatever. Like his face is a little, I don't know, and it's
Yeah.
cut off.
I think you said resigned earlier, which I think is a good
It looks
description of
resigned.
it. Yeah.
I mean, it also goes with like his dialogue too.
Yeah. He's just like, well, this is how it is.
Yep. He's like, and also the way that he describes his situation, like I live and I work or whatever, and that's all I do. So I assume that his like what he's implying by work has something to do with the Somas, since he never has to go
Yeah.
out, I guess, essentially. And Akito is like, oh, hope you didn't cause any trouble outside or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think if you piece all those things together, it seems like Kureno, he works somehow within the inner family and like doesn't get to go out much.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Uo and Kureno?
Sure.
Yes.
Let's do that.
Can you hear the excitement in my voice?
So they're pretty cute. I forgot how cute their little meet cute is.
The meet cute is very cute. I felt like it was very touching. I really like the scene, the one that we just described, that we were just talking about, the one where he like touches her face and he touches her hands and her hand and stuff. I was like, my heart is beating. Like, you know, it's like, why is my breath so fast? This is doing something to my feelings.
Yeah, it's a good set of panels. It's very kind of striking and gets a lot of emotion across.
I think so. I like that there's more and more of these panels. Like I noticed in these 2 chapters, we have some additional like visual language that we haven't really seen that much before. But one of the things that we're seeing is these like big like spreads of panels, or like longer ones where there's no dialogue and it's just communicating something about the story but without a lot of dialogue overlaid. And this is one of them. The last one that we saw was one with Yuki where he's like, boring guy, when he's walking to work. It was like in the last episode we recorded, I think. I really hope there's more of them because they're really, really nice. I like them.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like the visual storytelling has gotten more sophisticated
I
as
think
the
so.
series has gone on.
I was just gonna say, or one of the comments that I have about this is like, I feel like I think we talked about probably in our like trailer, maybe in the first one, but probably the trailer. We talked about how like the visual style slowly changes over time, and I think we've gotten to like Takaya 2.0 style. I feel like I can officially stamp this and say this is like it's gonna change a little bit more, I think, but like this is
Yeah, I
it's
think.
very different than the beginning at this
Yeah, I
point.
think we now look more like the ending of the series than
I
the
think so.
beginning.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good way to put it. It's like we've transitioned. We're so far that we can't go back or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Macbeth. I don't know. It's so simple. He touches her fingertips and he touches her face. He like pushes some hair out of her face, and then you can see that his face sort of changes and it's like dark, and then he backs away.
Yeah.
And it just says so much in those actions. Even Uo, like, in case you didn't get it, even Uo comments on it and is like, it's like he just said, I love you. And then, of course, he feels, like, resigned, like he'll never see her again. We see at the end of the chapter, which I guess is why he pulled away, we can infer. There's some other, like, visual things, like, one of the things that goes on in this chapter, there's, like, a bunch of these little memories they have of each other that are very sweet. Like, where he remembers her smiling. Well, she remembers him smiling and being like, that wasn't a very genuine smile. Like, when they're at the restaurant together and she's about to leave, you have all these, like, kind of overlaid, like, memories of them, but they're always about them smiling. So she says, like, I felt it today when I first saw him, this, like, lonely smile. And then he has another memory later of her smiling when, like, running. It's when he says, running till you're covered in sweat just to talk to me, and she's also smiling. It's kind of cut off, so it's a little bit hard to see, but then he has another one later that says, I couldn't get you out of my mind, and it's her smiling as well. It's something about them that's just very, like, these little touching moments that they remember about each other. One thing that I thought was interesting that we don't see very much is, like, there's this... So often Takaya uses this narration / inner monologue of a specific character that's overlaid through a chapter. So in this case, it's Kureno's. In the chapter with Hana, it was Hana's. In Hana's, it's, like, dark with white text. And in this one, it's this, like, texture. Sometimes it's, like, a white box, but in this case, it's this, like, weird, like, kind of gray, like, cobbly, liney texture.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, made it really hard for me to write from looking at it from far away, like, to take notes. But it's interesting because I don't think that that's a visual, like, a style of dialogue box that we've seen before. So I wonder if we'll see it again. I mean, I think that you could interpret it in a certain way. Like, there's something about his, like, you know, his thoughts are sort of, I don't know, like, chaotic or something, but since we haven't seen any more of it in any other usage, I don't know if we can, like, really interpret it that strongly, but I just thought it was interesting that we haven't seen that before and now we're seeing it here, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's, like, a faded, like, texture, but usually not, like, behind the text completely like this one, so. I don't know, I thought that was really interesting. There's just very small things. Do we need to talk about their age difference? This is a question that I have for you.
I think it, like, I mean, 9 years isn't really that huge of a difference when you're a little older. It's a little bit bigger when one of you's in high school, but
Yeah, I think so.
but I feel like it comes off as less big, also because Kureno comes off kind of like naive.
Yeah, he comes off as
in
kind of
his
immature.
life experience. Yeah, especially, and like Uo has had a lot of life experience.
The opposite.
Yeah, so
It's
it
true.
seems like less of a gap than it is.
Yeah. I think there's a debate in the fandom. Definitely more so with, well, I think there's a debate in the fandom about, there's multiple pairings in this story that have, like, a large age difference. And this is one of them. So I think there's, like, in general, a large debate. I don't hear it so much about Uo and Kureno, but I'm sure that when this shows up in the anime, it's probably going to become a debate again if it isn't already, and I'm just not in touch. But, I mean, obviously, like, there's reasons for it to be, like... Yeah, if you're a teenager, I guess this is like public service announcement. If you're a teenager and a 26-year-old man tries to take you out to lunch, he probably has an ulterior motive.
Yeah,
so.
it's like, this is one of those, like, I wouldn't recommend it in real life, but this is a fictional story.
It's a story.
With
We can
fictional characters that, you know, A, it's fiction, and B, we know their internal thoughts and motivations and stuff.
That's true. We do. We don't have to guess like real life.
Like, we know, like, not that much at the moment. We barely met Kureno, but we can, we do get his internal monologue, and we can tell he's, like, genuinely like feels affection toward Uo. It's not like he's just like,
He's not trying to like take advantage
he's
of
not
her.
like a sketchy old man.
Yeah, he's not as sketchy as Megumi. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I think it's a good point that we can see his like internal motivations, that we can tell that he's genuinely interested in her. And there's not some ulterior motive.
Yeah.
That's sketchy. But I can understand why people would. Some people are just like, no, like relationships like this are always bad and wrong, which it's probably a valid argument in real life. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think in this case, like your comment is also how I feel. Like Kureno is kind of presented as a person who like doesn't have a lot of life experience. Like he feels like a teenager.
Yeah.
If you just like made him look younger, he could be 16. Like the way that he acts.
Yeah, like he doesn't act like immensely more mature and aged than our main cast.
That's true. And Uo is someone who like has a lot of life experience. Like she's probably more mature than a lot of people in high school, I think. Yeah. To a certain extent. So
yeah.
So yeah,
which,
I don't know.
None of these should be taken as this like justifying real life relationships.
No.
Because like, oh, they're mature for their age is used by sketchy people with sketchy motivations. But
I'm rolling my eyes really hard. Yeah. You can't see it, but it's like they're just constantly pointed up. It's like, no, that's not true. They're still teenagers. Like, yeah. Anyway, I guess disclaimer for all of this discussion is that. But
it's all in the context of this fictional story where we
not in real life
can see all of these characters' internal thoughts and feelings and motivations.
For sure. A good disclaimer indeed. But yeah. Anyway, having said that, having like made that public service announcement, I think that they have the potential for an interesting relationship, as we've seen. Yeah. And perhaps a challenged one, of course, because like Kureno it seems like it's coincidence that they met in the first place and that they met twice and that might not ever happen again because of some relationship that he has with the Somas.
Yeah, as another comment, it's like the age gap is not the big problem in this relationship.
Yeah, that's true. That's also probably true, yes. There's so many other problems that would be like, don't do it. It's not a good relationship. But the, like, I mean, if you look at that spread of them and you don't have feelings, what kind of monster are you? No, I'm just kidding. I think there's a lot of, like, people who are not big fans of Kureno, too, in the fandom, which I can understand. In this chapter, for sure, he's, like, very bland. Like, he comes across as just a dude who's involved with the Somas, and he doesn't seem to have, I don't know, he just seems like a guy who's never been to a convenience store. But, like, I don't know. I think that he has some interesting qualities. Like, I think his, I just feel like his expressions are really interesting. Like, there's the way that he, and it's called out so many times, all these, like, different kind of, like, smiling gestures. You have, like, the one where he's kind of just like, I'm fine, everything's fine. And Uo's like, are you really fine? And then he has, like, a more genuine, like, a smile that's, like, I don't know, genuine pleasure later. Yeah. When he realizes that she kind of felt the same way. When it's obviously feel the same way, she ran after him anyway. It's like they both met and they both wondered about each other for a long time after, and now they're seeing each other again. But they may never see each other again, dear listener. So we'll have to see what happens, I guess. I feel like that's everything about Kureno, huh?
Yeah. I feel like there's kind of a theme in this series of, like, significant one-off meetings between characters.
That's probably true.
It's like, oh, I met this person and we had this one kind of meeting and it impacted me in a significant way. I feel like we get that a lot in this series.
Yeah, like Haru and Yuki, for example.
And like Tohru and the boy in the hat.
Right. Yeah. Obviously. How could I have forgotten about Hatsan?
Yeah.
Even, like, I don't know, like Uo and Kyoko. I mean,
yeah,
it started off as a one-off, but...
Yeah, and just, like, had, like, our main, like, school trio meet, like, Tohru and Tohru and Hana.
Well, Tohru just met them in the woods, too. Like, Tohru met Yuki.
Yeah, those sounds, too.
Having camped at their house, so...
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a real thing. Like, being in a certain place at a certain time, you could meet someone that you would never have met otherwise, and, like, that can change a lot of things about your life, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right. It's definitely, like, it's an element that's used in this story a lot. Maybe a theme. The impact that someone else can have on you, I guess.
Yeah. I do think that's kind of an overarching theme, but...
Definitely. You know, being hurt by people and hurting them.
Yes.
for example.
But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like significant first meetings and like could have been one-off meetings between characters.
Yeah, I think you're right. I like how Uo's constantly like, you're gonna be someone's boyfriend soon, or didn't she already make some allusions to, I think when they go to buy the bathing suit or whatever, she's like, I don't know, I also assume one of you two would marry her, and then Yuki and Kyo are like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I can't remember.
And she also
exactly,
the one like early on who said like one of them might wind up like confessing their love for her.
Yeah, when they leave Kyoto's
someday,
grave.
yeah.
Yes, correct.
I liked how here this is my transition to the next chapter.
Okay, great, perfect.
I liked how we had how we had a little scene of Megumi like checking in with Hana
Yes.
when like asking if she was lonely, and she's like, no, I'm fine, like seeming pretty genuine, which kind of, you know, with the next chapter we see that they've always been really close, and he's always been concerned over her, so
Yes. He's a good brother.
yeah.
I think I actually made that as a note.
I have a note that says Megumi.
Yeah. He's so good. Also in the the other chapter we read about Hana, or like whatever, it was just in the anime before the one that we're talking about this week.
Yeah, I never back down from a wave fight one.
Yeah, yes, I never backed down for a wave fight. He was also checking in with her. She said that she was like jealous, and he was helping her with that. And then I feel like in all of this backstory chapter, he's doing the same thing, which is very sweet.
Yeah.
So mature for his age as a tiny, tiny child.
Yeah, because he's an old man.
He is. He's a lascivious old man, as you said earlier. In addition to Hana's brother, Hana's parents and her grandmother are like A+. They're like the best parents that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
They're so supportive and kind. I think it's interesting. The overall message is like, even if you have like another support system, people are always still wanting to be accepted by other social groups, which is interesting to say. But it's also nice how throughout the chapter there's finally like supportive parents, or they're like, okay, like this, you know, like it's not your fault that this thing happened that you can't control, and like, you know, these kids are picking on you or whatever, as much as they can tell at least. And then eventually they're like, we need to get you out of this situation, and we're going to move as a family. And so they do everything they can to kind of like support her, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's really sweet. It's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, it is a nice change of pace. I mean, she has so many other issues. Like we have all the kids constantly bullying her in school, which was like heartbreaking when I read it this time. But at least it's like, then you go back to seeing it for parents and you're like, okay, everything's going to be fine for like a couple of panels because they're going to be supportive, which was very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally it hurts even more when the kids go home to their parents and they're just like, whatever, I don't care about you. There's another interesting there's these like visual effects, there's a bunch of different visual effects like I was just talking about. Another interesting one is like the use of the like dark speech bubbles for representing like other people's thoughts that Hana's hearing as a child.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that at first, and then I was like, oh, like, that's what those are.
Yeah, I was like, what's this weird black texture? Oh, it's like people's dialogue boxes. We've seen other use of like empty dialogue boxes other times. I'm trying to remember. Or like altered dialogue boxes. The one that comes to mind offhand is when my great teacher Mayako was talking to Tohru in the hall that one time, and they were too far away to hear, but then there's little like empty speech bubbles. So it's kind of interesting that we have this, and it's like represented, it's used multiple times throughout the chapter. So like at the beginning there's a lot more, and then of course in this scene where everyone's thoughts come back after the girl like accuses her in their middle school classroom, like it comes back in again as a texture. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a nice effect. It was very interesting. I feel like these chapters, like, we're reading them because they're back to back and you can read them at the same time, but I don't know if they're actually interrelated.
Yeah, I think they're just two one-offs that are right next to each other. But, yeah.
I think like the
Although
chapter,
it's an Uo story and a Hana story, so
that's true.
they kind of pair nicely.
We talked a little bit about the theme of the first chapter, which is, and like one of the things that the themes within the first chapter that we read, and one of the things you mentioned, of course, is this like what kind of chance meetings can change a lot of things about you, and the idea of the constant coming back to this like idea of interacting with people, that's how you become like a person who can interact with others, and seeing how someone who's theoretically not got a lot of life experience and maybe like looks a bit acts like they've been isolated, like he doesn't have a need to go out, and then struggles obviously to interact with another person. I wonder what, so like the theme of the second chapter then, what are some like overall themes that are in there? We did have a Kyoko wisdom drop. Let me find it. Which is always like a good indicator to me of like whatever the theme is. In this case,
That's
it's
the human need for connection.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That not just your family is not necessarily enough.
Mm-hmm.
I also like how she says like someday when you girls are older, even if you take different paths, you'll never have to feel lonely or loved because these are the kind of bonds that never go away.
Yeah.
Which is very sweet.
Mm-hmm. I like how we see, like, I don't know how far out this is from Uo's backstory, but we see she's got like bandage on her face for most of her scenes, so she's still obviously dealing with some fallout from leaving the gang.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when this is, but it sure looks like they look exactly the same as like right at the end of Uo's backstory.
Mm-hmm. It's nice to see her being so happy and doing so well.
And like including other people and like trying to form a new, like Uo herself trying to form a new social group, which is interesting. It's just like, hey, new kid, come sit with us. I don't like when people are alone or whatever, which is great.
Yeah.
Like how Hana like calls them out right away, where she's like so arrogant. The other one's like a ditz, but very polite. It's like really good.
She's like, you guys are weird. And they're like, yeah.
We get that a lot. So good.
Yeah.
They're like, come sit with us, weirdos.
Yeah. I also like all the scenes of like all the families interacting. Like you see like, you know, like Uo and Hana and hanging out with Tohru and Kyoko, and then you also see like Uo and Tohru over at Hana's house with her family
sweet.
And stuff. Yeah.
When Hana's learning how to control her powers. I feel like that's like, it's just a little like a very short scene, but probably a very important moment in her life, actually. And the fact that they're there like with her, I think is really important. I also like really touched on it very, very lightly when we were in this like summary. But yeah, I feel like it's just a little note there. It's like one little scene that I feel like is probably hugely important to her, to be able to control when she hears people, like understands their thoughts and when she doesn't.
Yeah, and I think the fact that she's got like all her family and friends around her when it happens is significant. One thing that just occurred to me this time is that I think because we just watched the anime episode with the like Yuki fan club.
Yeah.
Is like people are still using witch as an insult to her.
Yes.
Like I wonder if that like stings.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like in the later chapters she's like more, I mean she has her little group, right? So she has her support system. It seems like she's a little bit more used to people like not understanding her, but also like, you know, like those things it doesn't strike her as deeply, it seems, at least from the outside.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she's still affected by it, but...
Yeah, like I think she's at the point where she can deal with it, but it's like having like the kind of like insults people were slinging at you at like the worst moments of your life, like to have people still using it pretty casually, even if they're not, you know, being as horrendous as the kids were. Yeah,
they're not physically abusing her. Those scenes where she's like, in school, like the one where they force her to eat the nude or whatever, I was like, whoa, and then they burn her arm. Yeah. I forgot all these things happened, and I was very taken aback when I read it again.
Yeah, like that's like horrific bullying.
Yeah, it's terrible. I was like, where's her teacher? Like, what the fuck? Like, the middle school one is a little bit different because like you have less supervision, but I was like, she's in elementary school. Like, the teacher should have been like 5 feet away. Like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Personally, but I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they were
during
also
lunch. That's when kids get up to crap.
Totally.
Be on them during lunch.
Yeah, totally. You can't get away. You're not supposed to get away with anything. It's when you have a bunch of kids who are like, yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, where are the parents? I mean, but still, yeah, they were very, very violent, and I was surprised by that. Like, I remembered her backstory. I remembered, like, generally overall that this was covered in the series, but I didn't remember all the specifics of it and how awful it was. Yeah. Like, how violent the kids were.
Yeah.
I mean, kids can be dicks, but
yeah,
man, like nobody is telling them not to do that. It's crazy.
On a lighter note, I like how both Hana and Ayame have like the same process for dealing with their dress code violations. She's just to say weird things at your teacher until they like decide not to bother questioning it.
I like how she's like, "What, you want me to remove the badge of my sins or whatever?" And the teacher is like, and then the kid is like, Sensei, Hana has black nails, and the teacher's like, what, you want me to, I don't know what to do, like, it's really great.
It's like, she says they're proof she's a sinner, what do you want me to do about it?
So good. And then meanwhile, Toru's like, I want to be friends with that.
Yeah.
So sweet. I love how Toru's meeting of her is the best. It's so Toru.
Yeah.
She like serves her. She's like, you get extra food and let me talk to you forever because I want to be your best friend. And then all the kids are like, can you not right now?
Yeah.
So good. And Uo is also like, yo, new kid, sit with us, which is also very Uo.
Yeah. I like when she calls over to Toru after Hana's just kind of like, oh, of course.
Yeah. Like, oh, you two, I see how it is.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing we didn't talk about this yet, but the other interesting thing that she says is, so she meets them, this is in the same scene, and Hana is like, from the first moment I met you two were really strange. The voices I would sometimes hear were never just pretty voices. You secretly have voices that seem to be crying softly.
Mm-hmm.
Such an interesting thing to say. Like, I wonder what that means. Like, obviously, we know that Toru and Uo have experienced some trauma in their lives. Like, I wonder, is that what that means? Like, is that what Hana
I think
can pick up about them?
Yeah. Seems like she's like trying not to like hear like actual thoughts, but can still pick up some stuff, and so she can. At least that's the impression I got.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's no, like, dark speech bubbles or whatever in these scenes, so she's trying not to. In fact, she says, like, if I think about them too much, then I'll be able to hear their thoughts or whatever. But it's really interesting that she picks up that they have that quality, and it's she picks up on it, which is very interesting. And, like, other people don't, like, other kids don't, I guess. I'm sure other people do, but she specifically mentions it about Uo and Toru, which is interesting. And the way that it's represented is that their faces are, like, shaded over.
Yeah.
As if it's something dark about them. She makes a lot of reference to, like, so there's, like, sometimes we see, with Uo's backstory, we saw a bunch of, like, imagery of change, like we talked about the butterfly and the moon and, like, other stuff, things happening at night and during the day, and things transitioning from day to night. Same with Hana's story as well. So there's a bunch of times where she mentions, like, seasons in particular. Like, she's like, I changed schools before it was summer. And then she says specifically, like, when I realized I'd almost forgotten my place, it was in between two seasons. Like, I guess in between summer and fall. There's, like, scenes of them often walking during, like, the sunset, I guess. Like, they're like, oh, the weather will be nice tomorrow. You can see their shadows are, like, quite long. And it's to help, like, build up that metaphor where she says, like, there were 3 shadows and I knew that I wasn't alone or whatever. But also the time of day in which it happens is, like, another transitory time. So...
Of course, change and transformation being a overarching theme of the series.
Definitely. It's almost like it's a coming of age story.
Yeah.
I feel like we've made that joke before, but
With animals.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I forgot about the animals. There hasn't been an animal transformation in such a long time.
Yeah.
Yuki and Kyo haven't transitioned. They haven't transitioned, that's true.
It's a different story.
Yeah. That's my new fanfic.
Yeah.
The Yuki and Kyo haven't transformed in a long time. I don't think any of the Somas have, other than Ritsu or whoever the last one we met was. I'm making shifty eyes that you can't see. Like, help me out here.
I know Ayame did the last time we saw him, but I can't remember if that was before or after Ritsu.
I think it was after. Yeah. He was snake. He was cold.
Yeah.
He was, like, too late and then transformed.
Yeah, he was cold or hot. I can't remember which one.
Oh, he was hot. You're right.
He had an extreme temperature experience, so he turned into a snake.
Yeah, and Yuki was like, how did you go to school? I don't understand. Yeah, that was recently. That was like a couple episodes ago of ours, a couple chapters ago.
Yeah.
So he was probably the last one. But Yuki and Kyo haven't changed in a long time, like a long ass time.
Yeah.
Many, many chapters. Maybe since like the lake. That's what I remember. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right. Transformation is a theme of Fruits Basket. How could I forget? I really enjoyed reading these chapters. I'm excited that we're getting to... I don't know. I don't have any other big things to say, so I was just going to sum up.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying... We've gotten to a point where, like, I remember things vaguely, but not very clearly. Mm-hmm. And so it's really exciting to read them. So this one was nice. Yeah. And I'm also really excited for, like, the full, like, I feel like the visuals are becoming more and more refined, so we're getting these really, like, touching, intricate moments in the visuals that we didn't necessarily have before for, like, a variety of reasons. I think, like, just Takaya's drawing style has, like, matured, or maybe something else changed about the way this is being produced or something, but it just seems like there's more, like, space in the story for, like, non-dialogue scenes to happen, and there's...
Yeah, I think the layouts have gotten more complex. And
I think so.
intricate.
Sometimes we still have moments where it's just like there's a lot of dialogue to like have to explain what's going on, which is always going to happen. But we have these really lovely scenes where there's just very, very minimal dialogue, and you get to see a lot of emotion. Like Takaya's really, we talked about it so many times, like the rueful smiles that we constantly see. But it's because it's like it takes a long time to pick how to describe every like face, every expression that someone makes when there's like a close-up of an expression on their face. I have to think about it for a while because it's like, what is this actual expression? Because they're always so like multifaceted. So
yeah, there's a lot of them where like you see the expression, you know exactly what feeling it's expressing. You just have trouble putting it into words.
Yeah, you're like, I felt that feeling.
Yeah,
definitely before. I felt the feeling of someone touching my fingertips and touching my face, but, but can I describe it as like someone that I cared about deeply? And it's like, how do you put that into words? I don't know, but I usually pick something. It's fine. But yeah, I'm excited because I just think that like the visual styles progress to a point where it can communicate a lot more than just like the words and the dialogue. So it's exciting. I don't know. It's the Furuba that I think of when I think of Furuba, like at this point, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, like, I feel like we haven't really gotten any. There's been like some touching moments between characters and some like ship teasing, but I feel like this is the first like actual like time that somebody said that they felt like romantic attraction or affection for somebody with Tohru Uo, right? I'm thinking.
Could be. Yeah.
I think so. Well, other than Yuki kind of saying that he has feelings for Tohru, I guess, like with Haru. We know about Haru and Rin. Yeah, we can say they're together. We know about Haru and Rin having been in a relationship, but they're broken up right now.
And we haven't seen them.
We haven't seen them together.
Yeah, and even like the Yugi stuff is more just Haru teasing him about it rather than like.
That's true. He hasn't really admitted it yet, and he's like, "I'm not dealing with that right now." In fact, he actually said he's like suppressing
putting a lid on it.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, yes.
I kind of respect that with him being just like, "Yeah, I'm not dealing with that right now." So if you could go along with me on this not dealing with it train, that'd be cool.
I'm impressed by his ability to compartmentalize his feelings.
Yeah.
I'm not like that.
It's like that's a problem for future Yuki.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's been some like touching moments, I think, and by that I mean like physically, literally touching too. Yes. Sometimes, like some of them, like there's been very definitely, like I said, like ship teasy type moments, but nothing like this. I feel like this is a new like marker in the like we're about to go full on into like deep like shoujo feels.
Yeah, I was gonna say it finally earned the romance part of the romance comedy that it still says on the back.
There is comedy. Even these chapters had some comedy. Even Hana's chapter had some comedy. Like, it's funny the way that she's like, this nail polish represents my sin. You want me to remove my badge of my sins? And the kid complains about it, and the teacher's like, I'm not dealing with this.
I love the kid complaining, because, he was just like, maybe no one will say anything if I just didn't let this happen. And then immediately kid's like, teacher.
Yeah, I know. I love it. That kid's such a jerk. That's the one kid who complains about everything.
He forgot to assign homework at the end, too.
Exactly. And everybody's like, shut up. Yeah, exactly. Teacher, Hanajima's nails are black, and she's like, whatever. He or she. Their teacher's kind of androgynous. I couldn't decide if it was a.
They got a female voice actor in the anime, but
yeah, I assumed that it was a woman, but then I was like, I don't know, maybe, whatever. Who knows? It's irrelevant. They're only there for that one scene. So a different teacher.
That's their gender.
Teacher gender.
Yes.
Generic teacher. Kind of like the teacher in like the Peanuts or whatever.
Yeah.
Where it's just like wah wah. Yeah, exactly. Identify as teacher. Anyway. Okay, good. Well, I think we're ready to talk about spoilers. Okay. At least I am. You people know where to follow us. Everybody knows. We're on the Tumblr. That's Tumblr is the best place to get your Let's Stay Together content, I feel like. It's the most active. It's not been the most active recently, but it is the most active, I would say.
It's the best place after the Google Play Store.
Only if the Google Play Store updates and actually gives you your episodes. We found out that's a problem sometimes. It's best placed after Spotify. It's the best place after Stitcher. Yes,
Yeah.
go to Stitcher. I mean, okay, good. Well, I want to talk about spoilers, so we're gonna play music and then we're gonna talk about spoilers. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Do you want to start spoilers? Question mark.
Sure, I'll start by following up on my earlier comment that I was surprised Kyoko and Katsuya's age gap is actually smaller than Kureno and Uo's, because
Yeah.
it feels bigger.
Yeah, I guess just because she's in middle school.
I think both because she's in middle school and Katsuya comes off as more mature.
Yeah, then Kureno.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a. He seems really sheltered and immature because he is, I think.
Yeah. Because he hasn't been allowed to leave.
No. He's been manipulated into the inner circle of the cult that we call the Soma family curse.
Yes. Speaking of, I thought his Kureno's comment when he was talking about how he's like totally happy and fine, when he kind of like looks down, he says, "I'm sure I'm more content than anyone."
Yeah.
I wonder if that's kind of like almost like a guilty thing about like his curse being broken compared to the rest of them.
That's interesting. I didn't think of it that way. I didn't have a interpretation of that, but I noticed that comment and I thought it was very interesting. So that's
Yeah.
I agree with you. Maybe. Yeah, I'm sure I'm more content than
Yeah.
everybody else.
Like I feel like he might, like looking at his later stuff, I feel like he might feel like he doesn't, like he shouldn't have anything to complain about because he's got it all, quote unquote, better than some of the other Somas, even though he really doesn't. It's just a different kind of abuse.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a different kind of abuse.
Yeah.
100%. If you feel like you can't leave, that's definitely abuse.
Yeah.
That's an interesting comment. I think you're right. I think it could be interpreted that way. At least I don't have an alternate argument for that.
Yeah. That's just kind of where my mind went. So.
He's like, yeah, I have everything that I need. I don't need more than this.
Yeah. He's a bird.
Yeah, that's right.
Or he was.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. I just didn't even mention it at all or think about it. Yeah, of course. You're right. His curse is broken and he used to be the bird.
Yeah. The chicken.
Yes. Yes. We met Kureno. He's the chicken of the zodiac. It's very important. There's a lot of people who don't like him in the fandom, it turns out. But I can see why. I think I mentioned this before. Seems kind of boring so far.
Yeah. I can see not caring about him. I think it's weird that there's like some people like vehemently dislike him. But
Yeah, I know. I kind of agree with that too. But then I think about it and I'm like, well, I have an overall like general positive opinion of this series, so
Yeah.
most things I'm either like neutral or positive about.
like he's not a character I think about that often, but when he's on screen I'm like, oh, he's fine.
I feel the same way.
I was gonna say something. Oh, so now we've met all the Zodiac.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. I was
Tohru
gonna say.
hasn't. We met
Yeah.
Rin, and we met Kureno. We don't know that much about them yet
Nope.
at this point.
We don't know they're animals, but by process of elimination.
We know they're somas. We met all the Junichi. Yes, we did. So it's interesting that the scene where Kureno touches Uo's face is echoed by Akito touching Kureno's face at the end. Of course, it implies, or like it's, implying their kind of special relationship status.
Yeah. Which doesn't actually get like explicitly shown for quite a bit. So.
Yeah. I wonder, like, I guess we'll have to, when we get to there, we'll have to, like, retrace what was going on, because isn't there a whole, like, love triangle between Shigure and Kureno and Akito?
Yeah, kind of.
Love isn't really the way to describe
yeah,
it.
it's like
It's
it's like Karina's just. It's like Shigure and Akito have their thing going on, and Karina's just like, I don't want to be here.
yeah, basically, actually, yeah, more like that. They have a complex
Ren's
web
in there somewhere.
relationship. Yes, that's. Well, it's Shigure Akito Ren, and then Shigure Akito Kureno, and they're two separate things that are both happening, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Later. Interesting is one way to describe it.
Yeah.
I have another important thing to talk about that's spoilery.
Okay.
Did you notice the feathers
I
in
did.
Hana's backstory? So how do these fit into your feather theory?
Yeah. Well, this is one of the ones that I mentioned were kind of like
Yeah.
kind of outliers because they're not. Most of them are associated with Aikido, but yeah. So we got black feathers during the scene when Hana possibly like curses the boy
Yes.
in the background,
Attacks
and
him
then
with
we
a
have
denpa.
and then we have a couple of white feathers when we get Kyoko's little knowledge drop.
Hmm.
So I mean, it holds up with the like black feathers bad, white feathers good general theming.
Yeah, and then specifically, I think Kyoko is saying the bond that you have is unbreakable or something in that
Yeah,
scene,
which is
right?
interesting. Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting how it's like, so you have their kind of like good bond and then like the curse breaking that's sort of represented by these white, or like accompanied by the white feathers we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Like as if
Yeah.
they have the ability to form like new bonds or something. Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of all
Yeah.
fits together as one element.
Yeah. I think the I think the white feathers you could say generally represent like more positive bonds and stuff.
Hmm. At least that's what I'm asserting,
Yeah.
choosing to interpret by this scene and the other things that you've so diligently categorized or cataloged earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think later on the black feathers more start to kind of represent the negative aspects of especially the zodiac bond, but
Hmm.
it could be like in general. But I'm not sure really how they fit with the scene in Hana's backstory, except for just
Yeah.
being a bad deal.
I do feel like it was used both in Uo's and Hana's backstories, and I think that there's
Mm-hmm.
things about them that are meant to parallel a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like they actually, I think they both have similar meetings to like when Toru meets like a zodiac person, like, and she kind of learns their deal, I guess.
Yeah.
So with Uo's, it's like the time, not necessarily when they meet, but I always think of the time as like of that was most impactful was when she like ran away and Toru took Uo to her house.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, it's like they forcefully invite Hana to have lunch with them, and they're like, "Yeah, we're weird, whatever. Sit with us." Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course later, like on the stairs, Toru also does a similar bonding thing with her. And this one, they also, it's similar to it's kind of a similar setup to like the one with. It's actually really similar in the kind of arc from Uo's, like Uo doesn't want to be friends with her, and then they run together, and then Uo tells her some stuff, and they like Toru rests her head on Uo. In this case, it's like Hana doesn't want to be close to anybody, and then they kind of like in the where Uo was in Toru's apartment, and it was like really she heard all the like noises and kind of got that like domestic feel. Hana sat with them at. They tried to get Hana to sit with them at lunch. Actually, they started becoming like friends or whatever, and then and being close to each other, and she started to get comfortable. And then the girl brought up that she cursed whatever or did something to the boy before,
Mm-hmm.
and then she runs away. And then they also like there's this like physical touch element to like what happens with Toru and Hana also. So they actually
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of parallels in their stories.
Yeah.
So the feathers are also used in both of those places, like I think kind of around the same point in the story where it's like it's a bad time and a bad thing happens,
Yeah.
right? It's like when Uo joins the gang, and in this case, it's when Hana like kind of wishes that the boy would die.
Mm-hmm.
It's not proven that she did anything. He could have just had an undiagnosed heart condition, like all those people that drop dead in Disney World.
Yes.
But it's strongly implied that she was able to impact something about him with her thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So
One other little thing I had is when Uo was talking about how like Toru's gonna be someone's girlfriend and like she and Hana are gonna like crash their date and stuff.
mm-hmm.
They kind of do that.
Mm-hmm. They definitely crashed their first date. Don't they go with them to the zoo? It's foretold.
Yeah, I think that might. But yeah, I was just generally thinking about them giving Kyo a hard time at the end of the series. But
I mean, they definitely just generally give him a hard time for sure, but I'm pretty
yeah,
sure they go on their like first official date with them
yeah,
too.
I think
So
they did too. Yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot to make sure to mention that in the spoilers. It's very important.
Yeah.
On his backstory, there's not a lot of like. It's I was excited we could see Megumi again because
Yeah.
when we talked about him in that chapter, we were like, I don't know if we'll ever see him again. And it turns out it's now,
Yeah.
but I don't know if we'll see him that much after this.
I feel like you might get like a couple like panels here and there, but
And then of course, like you pointed out earlier, or you mentioned earlier, like the age difference between Kyoko and Katsuya, and of course, like we got a reference to their relationship from Toru being like my parents were 8 years apart, and they were
Yeah.
very much in love. So
Yeah, I think that's the first mention of them having like an age gap too.
I think so.
Like I think we get mentioned that like like Katsuya's parents and family didn't approve, but
Yeah. Well, they don't. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they don't have a good relationship with Tohru.
yeah.
I'm not sure like how much it said that they don't approve or whatever, but of their relationship, but they definitely don't. I think there's been mention that his family doesn't really like Kyoko, but not necessarily why yet.
Yeah.
I don't think anything else specifically. There's no other specific spoilery things that I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah. You get like the start of some stuff here, but it's not like heavily foreshadowed really.
No. And like Uo's relationship with Kureno comes out of nowhere. So she's it was like alluded to briefly where she's like, I met a guy who didn't suck the other day.
Yeah.
And then
He's clumsy like Tohru.
Yeah. I like how Megumi and Hana were like, should we stake out the convenience store?
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And she's just like, don't.
Yeah. It's like, I told you he doesn't look like Tohru, he just acts like Tohru. And Tohru's like, clumsy? Tootsie? It's funny how they mentioned that, and then they also mentioned it in her backstory, in Hana's backstory. Hana's like, she's ditzy, and she speaks super politely.
Yeah.
Like, those are her defining characteristics. I also like how Tohru was like, I resolved from this day on to be a better person. It's very charming.
Yeah. The Hana's like, I wasn't trying to make you laugh or be depressed.
Yeah. She's like, are you listening to me? And they're like, totally. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It's very sweet. Okay, well, on that note, maybe we should record our next episode, which is about the same thing. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, you can find us at Tumblr is the best place to reach us, so you can find us at Tumblr and Twitter, and you can email us at staytogetherpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on all of the places where you can listen to podcasts, including the Google Play Store, as you mentioned before. Yes. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Do you want to start spoilers? Question mark?
I might have to get that, but we'll see.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
Um,
I have to get that.
yeah. Pick it up and go, hello.
Yes, exactly. It's me. Did you read the note about what Totoro soba is?
Doesn't sound delicious, but
I'm pretty sure I had Totoro on a plane once, and it was not delicious, but also it was on a plane, so, I mean,
yeah.
Perspective changes everything. Just like, you're excited to eat goo on soba. I mean, I get it, I guess, but it's the only thing. It's just, I didn't like it, so I don't know. Sorry,
You read
I'm
the
sorry.
article about, like, how people drink tomato juice on the plane because it tastes different because of the altitude. And it's, like, one of the only things that tastes better on a plane.
I heard
Lots of things taste worse because of the altitude.
I heard savory food's supposed to taste better on planes. Because, like, something about your, like, sensory input getting, like, overwhelmed by, like, sounds and altitude and junk, and so savory things are supposed to taste better, including tomato juice.
Yeah.
The best food I ever had on a plane was, like, risotto, so I feel like that's probably true.
Yeah. I always liked the cheap Salisbury steaks on the plane.
That's also probably got a lot of salt.
Yeah. So when we were going back, they were out of the rice stuff. What's it called? The breakfast rice goo. Totally blanking on the
Okayu?
name. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were out of that by the time they got to our seat, so I had to have the regular breakfast, and it made me sick.
Oh, no. That's terrible. I was really excited. The okayu that we had on the way going there was really good. I was
Yeah, I
like,
was hoping that we get it
I
again,
want
but
that.
they were out by the time they got to us on the plane.
Anyway.
So I was sad.
this has been Airplane Break with Kayla and Ellen. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so at the restaurant.